Hello, everybody. Welcome to another brand new episode of Stima Autista by Fundacion Autismo Aruba, with its mission to create autism awareness, not just only for the island of Aruba, but also for the Caribbean, Dutch Caribbean region, the Americas, including Latin America, Europe, and the rest of the world. As you can see, I'm Byron Nasir, and today we have two new guests here in the podcast, one international and one here in Aruba. And they are Dr. Hantak and Miss Anouk Ayman. I would like to Dr. Hantak to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Byron, for letting us be here. My name is Dr. Kelly Hantak. I am a Senior Research Associate for the University of Missouri, Kansas City Institute for Human Development near Kansas City, Missouri, in the United States.
Oh.
So I have known Anouk for many years, and I was asked to come to the island and help develop the early intervention system here in Aruba.
Ooh, that's great.
So it is wonderful to be back.
Yeah.
This is like your third time.
This is my
already?
third
Yes,
visit in
yes.
about 18 months.
So we're working.
Yes, indeed. You
Yes.
guys are definitely working. And I have to tell you, like you said, you mentioned Anouk. We have to introduce Anouk right now.
So my name is Anouk. I was Dr. Kelly's student. I did my master's program at Lindenwood University. And ever since I came back, I was like, okay, I really want to do the early intervention. We've spoken about this my entire master's
Several
program. So
times.
every time I get to know something new, I would bring back, because every time I would come back to Aruba for like a summer vacation, and I would go back, and I remember that you guys had let me do some of my activities
Yep.
based on Aruba
Yes.
and not the United States. So that was also very interesting, which also helped me to find out what is the current situation in Aruba. And then I believe it was like a few years after I got the job of the project of actually working on an early intervention system for Aruba, but we're starting in the daycares. And that's when I was like, okay, the perfect person is Dr. Kelly. So that's, yeah, and I am an early intervention specialist also. And we're starting first in the child care centers, and eventually the goal is to make it a national system.
Yes.
Wow. That is very, very nice.
Yes.
Now, there is one exception here in this episode. I was supposed to have the news update ready, but I've tried to find it and it is not found. So unfortunately, I cannot bring you the news to this episode, but in the next episode, I'm going to bring you the news just as you know here on the podcast. So don't worry, the news will be on in the next episode. So no news is good news.
Love it.
Yeah. And also, did you mention this? I can tell you that this October is the day or the month of the first year anniversary of our podcast, Stima Autista.
Hey, that's
Ooh.
It was on
nice.
October the 18th of last year. We did the first episode. I was with my co-host, with Kay, who is also ambassador of the foundation. And I have Carolina as the first guest, and my Uncle Raymond as the second guest. And we talked about the intro of Stima Autista, autism, etc. And it was like amazing collab between Fundacion Autismo and Shopping Mix Studio. And that started the foundation for the podcast. And I'm so
Wow.
blessed that,
I mean, look how far you've come.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
thank you so much. It is a whirlwind of a journey. But now it's time to continue on the Stima Autista journey. And we will continue bringing you a lot of information on autism and other stuff as well. So don't worry, we will be having another new episode coming up next month. But today we're going to talk about one important aspect here in this podcast, and that is early intervention. We all know about early intervention, but my key question for this one is, could early intervention be the key to diagnosing autism? We'll find out the answer later. But in this episode, we're going to take a deep dive on the early intervention. Now, I have to start with the first question, and I don't know if one of you could answer, and that is, what is early intervention? So, who's going to answer?
I'm going to leave this for Dr. Kelly. I mean, I've learned what is early intervention because of you, so go ahead.
So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
On your 1-year anniversary.
Aw.
I'm like about ready to cry because that is such a wonderful success story, which is the reason why early intervention is so important. So early intervention is pretty much what it sounds like. You provide intervention or therapeutic services or intervening services, depending upon how the aspect that you're looking at. Early, it's early detection. We hear about early detection and treatments for diseases such as cancer, kidney stones, medical conditions, but we can also do it in the education system.
Really?
Yes. So that's part of it. It is a parent or a doctor recognizing that the development of a child may not be following the general course that we would typically see. So have you ever heard of the term typical peer?
I did not know about that
So
word.
there's a term called a typical peer because somewhere in education, somebody has observed thousands of children, watched them develop, and said, hey, at a typical age, let's say 12 months, a child should be sitting on their own. So when the child gets to be 12 months and they're sitting on their own, they have hit that developmental milestone.
Oh.
But maybe the child learns to sit on their own at 6 months. They've acquired that skill, and actually sitting alone is earlier than 12 months, so it's hypothetical, right? But they reach that skill at 6 months. They've reached that milestone early. What about if a child is sitting on their own at 18 months, not until they're 18 months?
Oh.
They've missed that developmental milestone by 6 months. So we may need to be concerned that they did not develop that skill by that 12-month estimated date for that developmental milestone. If we notice that the child is not meeting those milestones, that's when it's time to probably have a conversation about, should I be concerned? Should I not be concerned? How do I know? And it's the experts, so your pediatricians, your medical doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, physical therapists, speech language pathologists, all of those folks who know development and skills, they can help. And if a child does appear through testing to be delayed, then you have the intervention.
Oh.
So here in the island, we have defined early intervention for children between birth and 4 years of age.
And that's where I'm going to lead to that question at the certain age group.
Birth to 4 years of age here on the island.
Yeah.
Worldwide, it's up to each country and system to determine the age. However, your fine folks here have determined and defined early intervention for any child who experiences a developmental delay between birth and 4 years.
Okay, if I can recall in my mind right now that I was diagnosed with autism at 2.5 years old, which is
wow.
within
Wow.
that range.
Yes.
And my mom, when I was a little kid, my mom did notice that if something was wrong with me, and she took me to a pediatrician. It runs through several tests. The first one is the hearing test, and my ears were as sharp as an eagle.
Yep.
And I gotta tell that when she got the diagnosis, she was well prepared. Mm-hmm. Because
So you have a wonderful mother.
I was
Yeah,
going to say,
thank you
very
so much.
supportive.
Yes. However, I do not want any parent to think that there's something wrong. What that means is you are not developing the same way and reaching those milestones as what we would expect a child, and that you probably were learning information differently.
Exactly. But for instance, I did not speak until I was I think 4, and the first language I spoke was English.
Oh.
But my mom would try to adapt to the foreign language to our local language, Papiamento. But then it was to be a little later in that age, I started to adapt to the local language. And now, when I'm growing up, I started to learn two new languages, which are Spanish and Dutch.
Okay.
Which is quite very good. And as you know, learning speech therapy, a lot of therapies, it can haunt you. And also, I would say that my mom had to take several measures for me towards when I was a bit hyper. When I was a bit hyper, she restricted me from sugary drinks, etc. And yeah, one thing important is they have a pill for people with autism, medicine that I took, and then I stopped because so I have to mention Risperdal is the tough one, right?
So Risperdal is when it's actually set for individuals who are diagnosed as, tongue-tied there, with attention deficit disorder, not autism. Attention deficit disorder can be part of autism, but the treatment is not necessarily for autism.
Yeah, that caused a lot of problems.
Can I ask when you started taking these pills? Do you remember how old you were?
I don't remember what certain age that
Okay.
I've took Risperdal, but when my mom noticed about these side effects, she talked with the
Pediatrician?
with the pediatrician, which was at the time in Aruba was Dr. Fundacion,
Okay.
and she told her to stop, and I stopped the treatment, which is I didn't got the severe effect, which
Okay.
is real good.
Right.
Now, what are the next steps for parents to know if their child has autism or not?
Well, I believe before even hitting the autism spectrum, I would tell you a little bit about how we're creating the early intervention system here in Aruba. We're not only focusing on children on the spectrum, but we're focusing on the different domains, which is cognitive. So we're assessing the children using DAISY-2, which is developmental
Assessment for young children,
second edition. And it focuses on 5 different domains, which is cognitive, communication, social emotional, adaptive, and physical. And this assessment kind of gives us a guide to, like Dr. Kelly was mentioning early, you have those milestones that you want a child to reach. This kind of gives us an idea, if the child is missing those milestone age.
Let's take it a step back, because how we started the project here in the island was we asked, child care centers in 7 districts?
Correct.
And we asked them for parents to complete we call it the developmental milestones checklist. It's called Milestones Matter in the United States. It comes from the Center for Disease Control in the United States. They had remember I was talking about those developmental milestones. So a bunch of doctors got together, created this checklist based off of those milestones. And there's a checklist starting at, I think, 12 months. It's like 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, 36 months on. And parents just check. It's real simple. So we arbitrarily said if that checklist came back and we looked at how many skills the parent said that the child had with the number they did not have, with the total number, that gave us a percentage. If a child if that percentage was less than 80%, we considered them to be in the pilot project to have the DAISY-2 given to them.
Yeah. And
Also, we realized, because we started this last year, we had the parents filling it out, but then after we had some parents, when we got these results back, some parents are either being too tough on their kids or are being too lenient. So then we decided that in the future we want both the parents and the child care, knowing that these are the two natural environments that the kids are most of the days. We want both of them to fill it out. So I think that's also going to be a little bit different for next year.
Exactly. And I would say that it is very important. And you mentioned the CDC
Yes.
because this one of our important resources that we have to know about for people, for parents who or their child who are suspected to have autism or may have autism. We'll get to the resource question a little later. But just to refresh our minds, what are the signs that for parents to look out for your child if they have autism? What are the signs or symptoms?
So I think one thing that we have to differentiate here too is even though I am a doctor, I'm not a medical doctor. So we cannot diagnose the child with autism. In the educational system,
No.
we look at what are possible signs and then refer them to the doctor. So I think the signs that we
Yes.
look for to where a child could be diagnosed with autism are things like, does the child look at you when you call their name?
Eye contact.
Eye contact. Does the child, do they play with, do they stack blocks? Do they turn pages of a book?
Do they play with other peers, or are they in a corner by themselves? There are a few signs, but I also think it's important to mention how, or it's interesting for Dr. Kelly to tell us how here in Aruba, the only specialist that can diagnose a child with autism or a person with autism is a psychiatrist, where in the United States,
So in the United States, it could be some psychiatrist, a pediatric psychiatrist, but it's primarily a neurologist. So a doctor who knows the brain and brain functioning and dysfunctions.
That's right.
and there are some psychologists as well in the United States.
Some. It just
the-
depends. It just depends. It depends on their background and their training and, who feels comfortable with it and being able to give that diagnosis.
Well, I got a diagnosis from a psychiatrist. And then later, if I could recall my mind, that
How you got diagnosed? Was it the doctor that recommended your mom for further testings, or you don't know?
basically I would say that the backdrop on how that I diagnosed with autism, I think it's rather that in my brain,
Okay.
my brain is different than everyone's brains, of course, my mom,
Okay.
because I have prickles that I'm constantly in constant information, and when it gets under overload, it won't stop.
Okay.
So
But your mom found out because of the doctor, or was a test? Like I'm interested of knowing,
Right.
because now parents, we're getting these kids that are almost 4, and then parents are kind of, okay, I think there's something, I'm not sure, and we want this to be starting earlier so we can see the signs earlier.
I think it's gonna be the test.
Okay.
Right. And I think the important piece here is your mother felt prepared to have that testing
Yes.
completed. And it sounds like, as a mother myself, if it would have been my child, then when I go to have the testing, I probably would have been a little nervous about it, but prepared in, okay, whatever the doctor says, it will be okay. Anytime I find myself in a very nervous or scary type of situation that I do not know how that's going to end, I just constantly remind myself it's going to be okay. Because once again, that support system, you and everyone else on the island is very lucky to have someone like a Nook and the government who is willing to allow me to come and help develop a system look at the assessments. And that is honestly the biggest message I would like to give to a parent. If they feel that their child is not reaching their developmental milestones and they're scared to talk to the doctor or to anyone about it, it's okay.
Glad you said that, because I went to the backdrop of that one. It's okay not to be okay on all certain things.
Absolutely. It's okay to not be okay and to have those feelings and to say, okay, who can I talk to? Who can I reach out to?
Yeah, and I think that's the idea also of this early intervention program is, to tell the parents that we are here and for them to feel like there is a support system, a support group, in case that when they do feel comfortable to reach out, that there is, and, there is like professionals that are willing to help them. So.
Yeah. We already know about the National Early Intervention Platform, but I don't know if we can tell the mission of it later or not.
Okay. Sports. Oh, like now?
Yeah.
So the end mission, like our goal for the whole entire, is that your question?
I think so.
Okay. So the goal is to, have eyes on the children from birth, like Dr. Kelly said earlier, from birth to 4. Because right now, after 18 months, I know we're all familiar with, once once a child is born, the system here in Aruba, you have your regular checkups at the White Yellow Cross, so they do get their vision tested, their hearing. But after that, there comes a time where there's no eyes on these kids, and not all kids go to the childcare, like we all know. So the goal is to start first in the childcares and trying to, like we mentioned early, we have the CDC milestone checklist where parents and the daycares will be filling out. So we want to have eyes on the kids that aren't meeting their developmental milestone. And the final goal, which I don't know what year this is going to be, but we do want to make it national. So we have eyes on all kids on the island.
Well, that's going to be a platform still in development.
Yes,
Oh,
it is
absolutely.
going to happen.
It actually is it's a what's called a triangulated, so a really long word. So tri means 3. So the approach that we are taking is to be looking at the system not only with the perspective of the child and their family, but also with the child care centers, so directors and teachers. And the third group is also the service providers. So that's where your doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, and all of the professionals with the therapists, physical therapist, occupational, well, you don't have occupational therapy here, speech language pathologist, behavior, somebody who helps with behaviors. It could be nutritionists. There's all sorts of professionals that people need. So we're looking at it with their perspectives as well.
Exactly. Now I have to go to the all-important question. Right.
They're all important, Byron.
Are you talking about the most important question?
The most important question is going to be, is early intervention the key on diagnosing someone with autism? Yes or no?
Ooh.
Is it the key, Dr. I mean, it helps.
It helps.
It helps process, like making the process a bit earlier, which the earlier the better.
Without
Hands down.
the intervention or without actually it's the parent being concerned, like your mother. Your mother was concerned. She sought help. You were assessed. You received your diagnosis. So we have to have the parents involved in this.
That's right.
And so what I would say is parents' concerns, I always tell parents, if it does not feel right, seek help.
That's right.
So intervention probably is a strong key to it.
Yeah, it is a strong key. So on my finished word, it says yes.
Okay.
All right. Now, you mentioned the CDC as one of the resources. Are there any other resources that are available for not just here in Aruba, but also for the world?
Yes. So you
Oh,
have.
Dr. Kelly is the queen of
Oh, I don't know
resources.
about that. So I do know that individuals here on the island have worked with Autism Speaks. So
Yes.
that is an organization that can also provide going to their website. They have a lot of information. A lot of people like them, and just like everything else, there are those critics out there. So I tell people, make your own decisions and choices. Center for Disease Control is another one. I think the foundation you have here is a wonderful resource.
Oh,
This
that's so
podcast
amazing.
is
This
Yes, yes,
podcast.
yes, yes.
I would be interested to know if anyone else worldwide who has been diagnosed with autism has a podcast.
I got to check to find out.
Maybe that should be my next big research question.
Yeah, I have to. I will check on if they have a podcast regarding
I would like to know that because
autism.
you
That's
could be
interesting.
the only one worldwide.
It may be. It may be. All right.
Maybe.
Now,
And if there are other people, you guys are not a lot. So,
Right.
I guess so. I guess so.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to do a podcast. I would be too nervous. I don't know. I'm so proud of you, Byron.
Thank you.
Same.
Back for a fact. I was a bit nervous before every single episode of the podcast.
But this was a year ago, right? Because it's been a year.
Yeah.
Do you still get nervous?
Sometimes.
Not as much?
I always think being nervous is good.
Nervous is good. It's a learning experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Try something new.
Exactly. Now I have to go to the next question. So I know you have a message for parents, for the kids, but now I don't know what the best advice is going to be. So on your perspective and Anu's perspective, what is the best advice for parents who are with their children who are concerned on their child right now? Anu, do you have to say?
So the best advice, I don't know. I have so many things is going because we've been assessing kids these days, and every time we finish an assessment, I tell Dr. Kelly, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Why wait? Why this? So there's so many things going through my mind, but it's like like you said earlier, when you have your concern, seek help. Stop listening to other people like, oh, don't worry, just wait another year.
Pass.
It'll pass. My son was the same. He spoke until he was 4. So, a mom starts feeling like, okay, no, maybe I'm being too tough with my kid. And I always say, I think it's best to make sure. What does it take for you to just go and check?
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, and obviously we're gonna work on next year, creating the awareness of the early intervention. I think it's still new for a lot of people. So, explaining why the earlier the better. So parents already know, okay, if there is a skill that a child is having difficulty reaching, the earlier you find out about the skill that child is not reaching, it's not only at home you can make a difference. We can, give the teachers or teachers at daycares tips on how to work on this. It's like when you are younger, your brain is like
It's a sponge.
It's a sponge.
It really is.
Exactly.
So those are one of I don't know, we have a lot. Do you have more advice on?
So keep in mind, speaking of the brain, it really truly is a sponge. A child does their largest growth spurts in the first year of life
Okay.
as over any other age that you are through your lifespan. Think about all of the skills that a person learns just in the first year. You learn to sit up, you learn to crawl, you learn to walk. Chances are you learn to run, you learn to talk. You learn to hold a pencil or a crayon or a marker. You learn to go places. You learn how to eat. Like, it just goes on and on and on and on. And when you think about that first year, everything a baby learns, it's with them for the rest of their life. It really starts the foundation.
And then it goes back to the electronics that, parents are also just giving in the first year of life.
Right.
Like, here, just watch.
So
watch for
I
3
always-
hours straight.
So when I teach a child development class and I talk about the brain and the plasticity of how the neurons fire in the brain, none of us, especially women, we really don't like wrinkles as we age. The brain is where we want those wrinkles. So we want to keep that there. And the only way you can is if you keep your mind active.
Exactly.
And you learn new things. And it's okay to think differently. But like I said, I think part of it too is if a child is in a child care center and the teacher or the director is concerned, they need to be able to feel comfortable to talk to the parent and say, I'm a little concerned. Call a Nook. Here's the checklist. Please fill it out. And if we need to call a Nook, let's call a Nook. I tell families all the time when I work with them, have your child at least screened one time every year. It's good to know that they're hitting those milestones because, once again, as a parent, if my child seems like they need help with something, I want to give them that help.
Yeah, it's not going to go away.
No.
It's not just going to magically disappear.
That's
So
right.
I can't stress it enough. If a parent, it could be mom, it could be dad, it could be another family member, it could be the teacher, do not wait. Just seek help right away. And I mean, we're here.
Right. The big thing is we assess the child and say, your child hit those milestones, and we'll see you next year.
Exactly. And glad you said that. I just want to go back to screen time, and I don't think the screen time right now isn't good for most of us because
Yeah.
Do you want to guess what the recommendation for the amount of screen time for a child is?
I don't want to guess.
You don't want to guess?
No,
It's 1 hour.
1 hour.
1 hour for young children. That means, and that does not mean 1 hour per device. So that does not mean, because that is what I see families do. Okay, I will let my child have 1 hour on my cell phone, 1 hour on my tablet, 1 hour on the TV, 1 hour playing video. No, it is a total of all devices, 1 hour of screen time per day.
And that's where the structure comes in.
Exactly. So that's where a lot of families, so let's face it, once again, I'm a parent. I have 2 children.
Ooh.
My oldest was a high maintenance toddler.
Oh.
He kept me going and active and like constantly. I was always tired because he kept going. And I would, like, seriously, I have to think about what are things that I can do with him. And that's the piece, too, I think that happens is parents go to work. They work all day. I don't know about everybody else, but there are days when I come home and I'm just exhausted because I've been in meetings all day or reading a bunch of research articles all day. My eyes hurt. And what am I going to do with my children? I have to worry about getting dinner on the table. I have to worry about giving them a bath. I have to worry about making sure everything is ready for the next day. Sometimes I have to worry about, is my husband's lunch for tomorrow set? So how do I have time to sit down and interact with my child?
Yeah.
So my secret is you let them do things with you. You have your child help do the laundry. Help make a sandwich or 2. Let them pretend to cook with a bowl and a spoon. You know, I don't know if here, my grandmother had a cabinet where we could bang on the pots and pans with spoons and make all sorts of noise. You can
Well, I'm
actually
going to
make
tell
a
you,
kitchen
one
band.
time I had asked my nephew to help me wash the dishes. never anymore. It was
Said he sprayed water
everywhere. I was like, you're supposed to help. But I mean, I get what you're saying. And they also feel like, they're being valued.
Right.
They can, acquire new skills while doing it. You can have a conversation. You can start practicing. Thank you.
Right.
You're welcome. Can you please pass me the plate?
Taking
So
turns.
it's lots of communication. A lot of parents, they would say no. But why are you telling your child no? Explain, no, you can't touch this because it is dangerous or because you're going to burn your finger. I think that happens. I see that happening a lot where parents tell their child or they'll yell a little bit like, no, don't touch that. Why? You need to explain why. They have to have fuller sentences. I think that's also a really good advice, to explain more. A lot of parents think that children aren't focusing or aren't like looking at them in their like eyes, but they are listening. They are listening. So just keep talking to them. Keep talking to them.
Guess we learned all our lessons here today.
That's a whole other podcast episode or a podcast in itself.
Exactly. Now, before we can get to the closing statements, now why am I wearing blue and why is Dr. Hantak is wearing blue? Because I have to inform all of you that, didn't you notice that there's going to be a 5K walk and run that's coming up? The blue race, let me tell you this, the blue race is back.
Woo-hoo.
And it's going to be on the 6th of November, the new location, MVC Eagle Beach. It'll be the start and finish for the 5K, the youth races, and the kids races. So, if you have registered before the initial date of the blue race back 2 years ago before the pandemic started, and if you have paid, well, if the Patricia Sports, the organizers, along with Fundacion Autismo, have made a list for those who have paid and who needed to pick up the bibs for the race. So you should go to the Patricia Sports Facebook page to check if your name is listed in that list. If your name is not listed in the list, you can register and pay up, either pay online or pay at the Ibiza Frankrijkstad, because it was originally placed at Patricia Sports Store, but the location of Patricia Sports Store is closed, so they're moving to a new location, so stay tuned on Patricia Sports Facebook. We gotta register because the time is of the essence. The Blu-rays could get sold out, so you should always know if you have a chance to be active. Register at thebluerace.com. Follow the simple instructions, and you will be either you can pay up for the registration online, or you can pay up, register, and then pay up at the Ibiza HQ at Frankrijkstad. Remember, to thank the sponsor for
Making
the
it
Blue Race.
possible.
The Blue Race will make it possible. Amsterdam Manor Beach Resort, the sponsor, who are trusting the Blue Race, well, since I think the start of the Blue Race, when it was previously the Blue Race was a fun walk. Now it's a real walk and run.
Okay, will you be walking or running?
Both.
Both.
Wow. So for those of us who cannot be on the island that day, do I get to follow it on social media?
We'll bring updates for the Blue Race and bring pictures for the race. And it's going to be provided by our friends at the 297 Sports Facebook page.
Nice.
They're
Yes.
going to be providing us with the photos. And once it's going to be available, you will see the moments and memories from each participant who participated either in the 5K walk and run, or the kids races, or even the youth race.
Ooh.
That's right. We have three.
So you
categories.
mentioned blue. Do you have to wear blue to go to this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it is the dress code blue. It's blue.
Yeah, I didn't get the memo today, guys.
That's okay, Anu. That's okay.
We're blue that day. I'll be wearing blue. I'll wear my shirt that day.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Now we are approaching the end of this episode of Stima Autista. I would like to give the guests their closing statements, starting with Dr. Hantak. Would you please give us a closing statement?
Sure. So I think my closing statement is, once again, everyone here on the island, it takes a village. And I think if you are a parent and your gut is saying, hey, I think my child's not reaching those milestones as they should, I don't know where to go, I think you have a lot of support here on the island. And if you feel like you honestly do not know, contact Anouk. She can tell you. But in the meantime, I continue to do the work here on the island, work with such wonderful families, child care centers, government officials, individuals like you, Byron. And I look forward to my next trip back.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Anouk, do you have a closing statement?
Well, first of all, if there is anyone watching this podcast and you feel that you would form an important part, or you can give us feedback or anything, you want to be part of this project, we do not exclude anybody. If anything, we've been trying to get the more people, like we don't want to exclude anybody. So we do have a PETA stakeholders. Every year it's growing and growing and growing because we find out that there is a stakeholder out there that we didn't know. So for me, I want to stress on that. If you feel like you want to be part of this project, then please contact. We do not have a website yet for the department that I work for, but you could just search my name on Facebook, or they can contact you, Byron, or Carolina, and please don't hesitate to form part of this project.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that includes you too.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Anouk and I have met on a weekly basis. So if anyone reaches out to Anouk, she knows how to reach me, and I am more than happy. We have had several meetings this past year through Zoom. So there might be 6 inches of snow out my front door, and I get to see the palm trees in the sun.
Exactly.
Yes, we work with everybody. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if you're in the United States. It doesn't matter if you're in Holland. The more, the merrier.
We welcome everyone.
Exactly. Now, I think I have one more surprise. Then, if you watch the previous episodes, I think the 5th episode of the podcast, back when Supplement Studio has its original setting, I spoke about the chances of going to the international event when competing in bowling, the World Games next year in Berlin. Now, I got the news on Sunday's training that Mike, the coach of bowling for Special Olympics, Mr. I don't want to say his name, but he says to me that he says to me this: your flight is secured, and I would say
That's cool.
that I'm going to be competing in bowling for the 2023 Special Olympics World Games
Oh my
for the
God.
sport of bowling.
That is amazing. I went to the pre-Olympics, and it's an opportunity, and you're never going to forget
No.
that. And I'm so happy you get to experience that.
I'm
That's
so
amazing.
happy. The same thing that I did in the USA Games back in Orlando,
Uh-huh.
I'll incorporate the experience to Berlin. I've never experienced
It's in
the
Berlin.
capital.
Wow.
I never experienced the
Wow.
German capital, Berlin, but it's going to be a fantastic
It's
experience.
going to be
Absolutely.
an unforgettable experience. Hey, maybe you bring the gold for Aruba. We'll stay pending.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're going to be leaving Aruba early because we've been assigned by a host town. A host town is per delegation,
Okay.
and we've chosen the Bayern region of I don't want to say to pronounce the German town. The German town is Kaufbeuren.
Okay. I don't know.
It's gonna be. You'll find out.
So you'll go how early would you be there?
Well, we're gonna take a 4-day stay in Kaufbeuren
Nice.
before
Okay.
the big one in Berlin.
Wow.
And are you guys a big group that's going, or it's just you and the coach and?
Well, bowling is one of the sports that we've qualified for the World Games, but full information is yet to be determined.
Okay. I'm so excited for you. That
Wow.
is amazing. Have you
Thank you.
ever been to Berlin?
I have never been to Berlin. I have
Okay.
never been there.
Amazing.
I haven't
Amazing.
either, so don't feel so bad.
Yeah. Now, I hope everybody was surprised about that. Now we
Oh,
have
yeah.
to finish with a quote, and I think Dr. Hantak is gonna write.
Oh, I get to read the quote? I
Yeah.
feel so honored. I was telling Byron, this is one of my absolute favorite quotes as a teacher, and I follow it. If they can't learn the way we teach the way they learn.
Yep, exactly.
I
And then
love
the
it.
one who wrote the quote is going to be Dr. O. Ivan Lovas.
Yes.
Is the one who wrote that quote. Well, I think it's going to be, that was the episode filled with information about early intervention, surprises as well. But I must say, it was a blast.
Oh, great.
We'll be back with another brand new episode of Stima Autista right here on Soppy Mix Studio. Don't forget, we want to thank our sponsors as well. It would have been possible without you guys. For now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next month. Keep an eye out for the next month episode of Stima Autista. And by the way, that episode was a surprise. I didn't announce it on my socials until now. All right? So, peace out. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.